What is up, Showminators? Welcome back to my channel. Today, I'm back with a 10-minute education series where I teach you something useful. All right, so the topic I picked today is called SQL or Structured Query Language. So, what is SQL, right? SQL is basically a way to talk to your database, and it's like texting. You say, hey, give me this information, and it actually listens. All right, why learn SQL and where is it used today? So SQL is actually used everywhere, starting from banks, Netflix, Instagram, to Uber Eats, where your order history is slowly exposing your 2 a.m. decisions. Not good. And if a company stores data, which every company does, right, someone's writing SQL behind the scenes. So, what kind of tasks will you be able to achieve after learning SQL? Well, you'll be able to pull data, filter it, update it, delete it, and basically become the person who can answer the question, hey, can you check the numbers real quick without panicking? All right. So, as I said, SQL gets information from a database. So, what is a database? Well, a database is just a very fancy filing cabinet, and a table is one drawer in it. And it's just rows and columns, just like an Excel sheet. But if Excel went to business school, so it's very fancy, right? So there are like four unique type of operations you're going to be able to do in SQL. They're called CRUD, or create, read, update, and delete. These are the four things you'll ever do in SQL. So it's you should look at it in a very simple way. All right. And for today's demo, we're going to be using an online tool called SQLite Online. It's free and it's very easy to use. No downloads necessary. So without wasting any more time, let's get started. All right. So for this demo, as I've mentioned, I'm using SQLite Online. And this is what the landing page looks like. When you usually land here, you'll see something called a demo table, which I have dropped because I'm not going to be using that in this session. Also, one thing I wanted to warn you guys about while practicing here is that whatever you create is only usable in that session. If you close this tab or refresh it, you will lose all that data. So if you want to practice, you might want to do it all in one session. Okay. So first in this demo, we're going to go over the different types of queries that belong to CRUD. Okay. So first things first is create. All right. The query for create is this. You use the create table keywords, then you mention the table name, and then within parentheses, you mention the fields that you want. The first field is usually the primary key or a unique identifier. These unique identifiers are usually of type integer or number, but you may choose whatever you prefer or whatever your business need is. Okay. Then the next field I picked is name, and I have initialized that as text. Whenever you're initializing columns, you have to mention the data type. One thing about text or string is that different database management systems may refer to them differently. Okay. Some might even call it varchar. So my table has already been created, so we can once again comment this out. Let's move on to the next query. The next query is select all query. So let's look at the select statement a little bit. We are saying select keyword asterisk, which in SQL terms means give me all the columns. So this is like an alias from, and then my table name. So I'm going to go ahead and run this. Okay. As you see, I do not have any values present in my test table, which is why now I have to go to update or insert. All right. Before I even try updating, I will have to insert values into my table, right? So this is what a insert query looks like. You use the insert into keyword, table name, values keyword, and in parentheses, you mention the fields that you want to add. Then you separate each set of values using a comma. All right. So let's go ahead and run that. Okay. Now, once again, I will use my select query to go ahead and see whatever got added into my table. As you can see, using my insert query, I have added 3 rows to my table. These are the respective IDs and their names. Okay, so now we can move on to the fourth type of query, which is the update. All right, let's look at the update query a little bit. So we say update table name set keyword, then field name equals to operator and whatever value we want. Now if I run this query, every name over here will get updated to Showminator. And why not? Because Showminators rock, right? But in a professional setting, you might want to only update specific columns. So for this example, I'm only gonna update the second row with the ID 2. So I'm going to use something called a where clause. Where clause is like a filter. I'm setting a filter that where ID equals to 2. Basically, in this update query, I'm telling my SQL server that, hey, in my test table, set name equals to showminator wherever you find the ID 2. But this will only be applied to the test table. So let's go ahead and run this. Great, that went through. Now, once again, I'm going to comment this out. Okay, then I'm going to uncomment this and check that table out. As you see, my second row value got converted to showminator. All right, the very last type of query that you will probably never use in a professional setting is drop table. Now, one thing is, many companies may not have a backup, which is why once you drop that information, it's gone forever. So you better be very, very, very sure before you drop a table. But as this table is just for test, it doesn't matter. So let's go ahead and run that. All right, as you see on the left hand side, that table is no more. Okay, I'm going to once again comment these out, and let's move to the tables that I have created for today's demo. Okay, so let's first select all the employees, select asterisk, which represents all columns from employees. As you see, I have like I think 13 16 records here. Okay, let's move on to the next one. Select all from skill sets. I have all the skill sets here with their IDs, and this table is going to be interesting. I'm going to remove the alias here. Okay, so this table, it's different than the first two. What it does is just stores the employee ID and the skill set ID, basically creating a connection between the employee and the skill set that they have been assigned to. Now, many might be asking, hey, why don't I just save all the columns in employee and all the columns in skill set in one table? Well, that will create redundancy, waste of space, and if there's a waste of space, that becomes costly for you in the long run, right? So you want to avoid that, and we want to normalize our tables and just keep, like, if you want to create something like this, you want to keep ID sets in tables to create a connection. Now, selecting this is not enough. And if you give your leader this information, they might not understand what's going on. And to extract this information, we have to use something called join, which will be displayed in just a second. But before that, let's go into the specific types or ways of executing a select query. All right. So now that I am in my employees table, it says select all, but I might just want the first name. So I'm going to write select first name from employees. This will return my first name. All right. What if I want first name and last name? But then my leader or the person I'm providing this data to, they might be like, hey, I want both of them concatenated together. Different languages or different database management system, they might implement concatenation differently. And if you want to learn that, I would suggest asking an AI assistant. But for SQLite, this is how you do a concatenation. Anytime you concatenate or create a new field, you have to give it an alias or a name. I will call this full name. Okay, so let's run this. As you see, my first name and last name, they got joined together with a space in between them, and I'm now displaying this as full name. Well, I might also want my ID, so let's select that as well. That is great. Now, this is like the basics of a select statement. There's more that goes into it, such as a where clause. Let's add a where clause to this. Where ID is less than 8. I just want to see the first 7 employees, and there you go, and they have been displayed. Now I can add more to this. Now let's use where clause that involves strings, right? Here I'm gonna say first name. Let's just first use equals to Emily. I will have to wrap that in single quotes, otherwise it'll be an error. Okay, this returned the only row which has Emily as a first name. But sometimes you might not just want to limit it like that. So then we'll use something called a like. And if we're using like, we can use wildcards such as the percentage sign, right? So I'm going to add a percentage sign before and after Emily and just keep the E. So what this is saying is, as I put a wildcard entry on both sides, is saying that, hey, they could be zero or n number of characters before E, and they can be zero or n number of characters after E. So let's see what gets returned when I run this. Okay, still just Emily. And what I'm going to do is I'm going to take this away. Let's see if I can broaden my search a little bit. Okay, now we have a little bit more. All right. Now that I have that, where clause, we have covered a lot using this where clause, but there's another thing here, which is the order by. So let's add that to order by. ID, by default, it's in ascending order. But if you ever wanted to make it descending, we will just write DESC. All right, there you go. It has been converted to descending order. Similarly, let's now use a update query here. We'll write update skill set table set skill set name equals to, let's see, this is just an example. Let's just remove cloud engineer using a delete query. All right, let's do that. Delete skill set, delete from where we can delete by ID, or we can also delete using equal to operator with the skill set name. But whenever you're using delete, it's best to use a unique identifier. And as I've mentioned, IDs are usually unique. So let's do ID equals to, I'm going to remove just one of them. Let's see one that I didn't use here. So 6 has not been used. So let me just drop 6. ID equals to, oh, this column is probably wrong. Yep, it's called skill set ID. There you go. That has been deleted. Now let's select all from skill set again. As you see, number 6 does not exist anymore because we have dropped it. All right. So we have covered all the CRUD methods. We have covered adding concatenations, where clauses, and order bys to my select statement. We have seen an update query. We have seen insert. We have also seen delete from, which is right here. Now, what we're going to try to do is a join. Okay. So joins are interesting. There are different types of joins, but the most common one is a left join, where the left side table, or the is referred to as the main table, and anything you join to it, we'll just take the values that are intersecting or common. Okay, so first, whenever we're doing joins, we want to use aliases. Why? So that we know which tables fields we're referring to, so that my database management system can figure that out. Okay, so let's give this a alias as empss. Okay, left join. Obviously we need the employee table here because we want the first name, right? Because if you look at let me just comment this out. Okay, this table simply just has IDs. That's not enough. I want the names, right? So I need to use my employee table to get the name. I'm gonna call it emp on emp dot id equals to empss dot employee ID. Now, whenever I'm doing a join and I'm saying, hey, explicitly join these two tables on this column, we have to ensure that the column values and the data types are the same. If they're not, it will return a null or a zero. Okay. Let's go ahead and select the first name and last name like we did here as a full name. I'm just going to copy paste because we want this to be a 10-minute video, right? Let's go ahead and do that. Okay, now we know that these are all the employees that have skill sets assigned to them. But now I also want the skill set name, right? Because that's what I have to provide to my leader. Okay, so let's do another left join. Skill set as ss on ss dot skill set ID equals to empss dot skill set ID. Okay, just so you know, You don't have to write the EMP ID first and EMPSS ID second. They're interchangeable. You can write whatever you want first, but the data type should be the same, and the data that you're referring to, the IDs should match. That's all you need to be aware of. All right, now that I have that, I'm gonna write skill set name. Okay, let's run that. Great. So now, using a table that initially just had IDs, we have the employee full name and the skill set name. But it doesn't end here. We can even add joins and order by and where clauses. So let's do a where clause where, um, let's just say first name has or starts with the, let's just say the first name contains a. So I'm just gonna do this percentage sign a. Once again, the percentage signs are wildcards, meaning they can be n number of characters before or after a. Okay, let's go ahead and run this. A couple of them decreased, but as you see, all of them have a in the first name. All right, but that is not enough. I want another one. And okay, let's do this skill set ID greater than, actually less than 7. Let's see if it, okay, probably I have to use my alias here. Okay, there you go. Now we have added two limitations or filters to my data. Then let's also do a order by skill set ID in descending order. Oh, I forgot the by. There you go. All right. So that is the end of my demo. In this demo, we have covered the different types of CRUD operations. And then we have also done a join and concatenation. All right, guys, that's the end of this video. Please subscribe. And I'm going to just keep trying to bring more and more educational content for you. All right. Stay tuned, Showminators, and take care.